I'm Jennifer Shea Love Long.
Taylor Coward.
Gerald Jackson.
And we're with When
Magic
Happens.
Hi, I'm Brandon Pope, host of the Making Podcast with WBEZ.
My name is Sasha Ann Simons, and I'm the host of WBEZ's midday talk show called Reset.
My name is Erin Allen, and I'm the host of the Rundown podcast here at WBEZ. So I grew up in a chocolate city called Detroit. Up until really recently, Detroit was a city with the highest percentage of Black people in the country. And so I grew up with a lot of Black people around me, but also in the suburbs of Detroit, it was very white, majority white. And so I ended up doing a lot of code switching and a lot of, even within a city with a lot of people that look like me, sometimes didn't always feel like I fit in. And so a lot of just trying to find my people. And so it took kind of getting out of my comfort zone, doing some traveling, coming to move here to Chicago and traveling internationally to really find my people. And I think a lot of the way that that's impacted the way that I see the world is that, you know, we all have our community, and sometimes it takes getting out of your comfort zone to find that community.
My Black identity has just been part of me. So it's really just been a very natural part of my experience. It's what I know, it's what I've grown up with.
Being Black for me makes me more compassionate and open-minded to what's different from me. I think that's probably my biggest beef with others about Black people is the need to be open to what's different than your own experiences, and be compassionate enough to hold space for that.
My Black identity is central to how I perceive the world. I mean, being from a marginalized group, I understand what it's like to be overlooked, to be disrespected, but I also understand the pride that comes with being from a marginalized group, understanding those stories of adversity and overcoming, long odds against you. It's something that people across the diaspora and across many different cultures that are marginalized understand. So being Black helps you better connect with other people from every walk of life, because you understand what it's like to kind of be the underdog and to not actually have your humanity recognized. So that gives you a good global perspective and gives you a good way to see the world overall.
I take it wherever I go. It's the lens that I use to look at the world. It always makes me want to make sure that I'm showing up for myself, because I know that being a minority and coming from a marginalized group as being a woman as well, people aren't always going to be apt to listen to me. And so I try to show up for myself, and I try to show up for other people that look like me when I can.
I was born and raised in the Caribbean, and in humble beginnings, I was also surrounded by people who looked like me. Once I moved to North America, that of course changed. My surroundings changed, and I quickly had to learn to coexist within diverse communities, while also maintaining my strong Caribbean connection. So that involved my roots and my warmth and openness to receiving other people.
My Black identity informs the work I do on the podcast, just in the questions I ask, the conversations I hold, but also the environment I'm able to create. A lot of times with these Black icons and figures, you find that there's a common thread. And that common thread is being able to overcome discrimination, being able to overcome racism, and these tools that have been set up to hold our people back traditionally. And so being able to understand that perspective, because I share that perspective, I think helps lead to a better product.
The podcast is really about 3 different Black women in 3 different generations, talking about their perspectives and views on a variety of different topics. And so, you know, my experience really informs the stories and insight and perspective that I'm able to bring to the podcast.
Those things that happen in our culture that you can't explain, because it's just something that Black people feel and have with each other. We were recording once and my purse fell on the ground, and Jennifer ran over and picked it up off the ground because she was just like, you know, your purse can't be on the floor. and like everybody Black in the room knew what we were talking about. I think it's an ethnic thing widespread, but that's just an example of those cultural moments that we could just share as coming from the same group of people.
When I think about the podcast, I'm always trying to figure out how to be as authentic as possible. I think when you grow up doing so much of what I said, so much of that code switching, you can, kind of have some trouble maintaining a through line when you think about how to interact with people. And that's actually what I do on the podcast every day is talk to people. And so I think it's an opportunity for me to really try to find that authenticity and also show people who may have had a similar experience as me that, again, like there is a community and your people are there, but it just takes maybe getting outside of your comfort zone to find that.
That affects the way that I show up on the podcast every single day. Be inviting to my guests. I seek out voices that aren't often heard on air, and I bring as many international stories as possible to the podcast.
When I think of Juneteenth, two things pop to mind. Red pop, because that's what you drink for a day of celebration. It's such a staple to Juneteenth. The other thing that I think about on Juneteenth is a reminder that we can be free and not even know it, and what that means in my day-to-day life. And so it's a beautiful reminder that freedom is always ours to be had in many different ways to express it.
Juneteenth to me ultimately means that, we recognize those who came before us, the trailblazers before us, and we understand that their lives mattered, right? It's a day about freedom. It's a day about liberation. But it's also a day to recognize that that road to freedom is not done yet. There's still a lot more work to do. And so when I think about Juneteenth, I think about the road we've had before us, but also the road ahead and how we can work together to better liberate everybody.
It has a tinge of sadness because it was a time where people did not know that they were emancipated. People did not know that slavery was over and they were still being enslaved. But just what we have made it into as a day of remembering and as a day of celebrating what we have now. We still have bondage in a lot of ways, but just acknowledging those people that came before us and acknowledging that, yes, now we are free, but we still need to continue the fight. And I think a lot of it is about resilience and it's about finding our freedom.
So when it comes to Juneteenth, I think of quite a few things. I know that there's this unspoken belief that centering Black voices, it means centering our pain and centering our trauma. And I don't think that it should be that way. That's all folks want to talk about, which is our resilience and our strength and how much we've had to overcome. But what if we shifted that? There's a story to be told there, of course, but I think we have so much more to offer in our contributions than just our stories of survival. So to me, that's what Juneteenth means.
Juneteenth is giving truth. It's like the epitome of the truth will set you free. When I first learned about the story of Juneteenth, I was really upset, really sad, really frustrated. When you learn that a group of people, your ancestors, have been, after having been, dealing with centuries of being dehumanized, and then when they finally are officially free, they're not really. It's really hard. But I think the lesson there, there's a lesson in all hard stories like Juneteenth, and the lesson is that the truth is liberating, regardless of who you are, what your background is. Being free from oppression and racism can set us all free.
I grew up in New Mexico, and we used to celebrate Juneteenth as a child. And so it's really about community. It's about celebration. We did a lot of things around music. And so I think, when I think about it, it's just an opportunity to engage with community and be connected with family and friends.
I think there are two ways to honor the legacy of Juneteenth: to celebrate our Blackness, if you're Black, and to celebrate learning about Blackness, if you're not. And so it's a wonderful day of celebration, no matter which perspective you're coming from.
I think that we can continue to honor the legacy of Juneteenth by simply celebrating Black excellence. There's a lot of things to celebrate out there, a lot of achievements, just our prosperity in a society that is filled with racial disparities.
I think we continue to honor the legacy of Juneteenth by thinking about the shackles that hold people down to this day. You know, whether it's the economy, whether it's the digital divide, like there's so many different barriers holding people down. And so when we think about freedom, you know, obviously slavery ended, but there are so many other things working against our people through the tools of white supremacy. So when I think about what we should be doing on Juneteenth, it's really just trying to reframe it and see how we can work within ourselves to liberate and free other people.
It's important to remember that we are all humans and that we all belong to each other. And there's a commonality that we forget about because of some of the things that are very visibly different about us. And it's important that through compassion and love and accountability that we honor that belonging and that responsibility that we have to each other as humans.